Welcome back, Defenders. In response to J.D. Vance's criticism of President Zelensky that he doesn't say thank you enough, Ukrainian defenders are now filming thank you videos of themselves in front of their donated American equipment. I want to play a couple of these videos, and we'll start with this one.
Thanks to all American people for providing us with weapons. Thanks to your support, we are still alive and we are able to protect our cities and civilians who live there. Thank you to our American people.
This is a Patriot air defense system that will soon be worthless because Donald Trump has cut off the resupply of air defense missiles. Same is true for the Hawk surface-to-air missile system. Here's another thank you video from a Ukrainian defender.
Dear Americans, thank you for all support you already provided to Ukraine. This particular Hawk SAM has shut down already a bunch of cruise missiles, saved lives, and protected our critical infrastructure. I've been in the US, I was studying there. You have a great country, it's beautiful. I wish Ukraine one day could be as peaceful, prosperous, and strong as the United States. Thank you for your support.
At the moment, Ukraine is running out of surface-to-air missiles because Donald Trump has cut off the supply. There are more videos, I'll link these all down below, of Ukrainian defenders thanking the United States. But we can be honest, guys, these are thank you videos, but they're really Ukrainian defenders begging Maga to reverse this decision and to continue supplying military aid, especially air defense missiles. And this isn't about gratitude. This isn't about saying thank you. What Donald Trump and J.D. Vance want from President Zelensky is for him to surrender, to be passive, to be docile, to be subservient to them the way they are subservient to Vladimir Putin. I appreciate the videos, guys, but I don't think MAGA cares. U.S. intelligence sharing has been frozen, and this deprives Ukraine of knowing in advance about Russian airstrikes. This is the critical thing that people need to understand about the United States cutting off intelligence sharing. It's U.S. intelligence with U.S. satellites that gets the early warning about Russia's long-range bombers taking off or ballistic missiles being fired from the ground. The immediate impact from the total U.S. shutdown of intelligence sharing to Ukraine will be wide-ranging, but Russian airstrikes targeting civilian infrastructure will likely become more effective. This comes at the same time that the United States has cut Ukraine off from air defense supplies. So this is a triple whammy. Ukraine is getting no resupply of air defense missiles from the United States. We lost the intelligence. We don't have the early warning anymore. And now Russia will be more successful in striking civilian targets far from the front lines. This is the immediate crisis that Ukraine is facing. And sure enough, a day after the United States did this to Ukraine, Russia launched a massive ballistic missile attack. And they've been saving their ballistic missiles more or less for the last month. They've only been firing mostly the Shahid drones. Ukraine energy infrastructure under a massive attack. This happened last night. These are the long-range missiles as well as the Iranian drones. Worth noting, this was the first time that Ukraine deployed the French-made Mirage 2000 jets they took to the skies to help shoot down these missiles and drones. Once again, how successful, we're not quite sure. This was a Russian ballistic missile attack that happened the night before on the city of Kryvyi Rih. The Russians decided to blow up a hotel that they thought was housing US and UK volunteers, killing 5 civilians. This is what this nice hotel looked like in the city of Kryvyi Rih, and this is what the hotel looks like now. That is an American flag flying in front of this hotel. And Russia blew it up to kill civilians they thought might be trying to help Ukraine. And I have to share the names, I have to share the faces of some of these victims. This woman, Ernia, lost her leg and suffered a head wound, and her husband, Sergei, was killed by the Russians 2 nights ago. So is there good news? And France says they will increase intelligence support to Ukraine in response to what the United States is doing. The UK wants to continue sharing intelligence with Ukraine, but the United States is telling them not to. The United States is applying pressure on the United Kingdom to cut off all intelligence sharing with Ukraine. This is on top of the United States self-isolating itself from the Five Eyes alliance. This is Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, and the UK. And the United States is not your ally. The Trump government administration wants to be allied with Russia and China against all of these people. So to my international friends, you can't trust the United States at best, and at worst, we're going to be hostile to you. We are now your enemy. So Trump is threatening new sanctions to Russia in response to this ballistic missile attack that happened last night. He put out a tweet this morning, but it's all nonsense. Donald Trump is not going to do anything to upset or offend the Russians while he's negotiating an aluminum deal with Vladimir Putin, while he's talking about new Arctic trading routes they can explore together. He's talking about resuming diplomatic relations and restoring direct international flights from the United States to Russia. Trump might occasionally put out a nasty tweet, but we're not going to believe it. He's going to do nothing to adversely affect the Russians and his personal relationship with Vladimir Putin. On top of that, private American companies are being told they can't support Ukraine. Satellite imagery provided by Maxar has been suspended. This is Donald Trump putting pressure on private American companies to cut off all support for Ukraine. Now, this is a bad business decision because if you're a European partner or Japan, South Korea, whoever, why would you do business with Maxar if Donald Trump can tell a private corporation to stop providing you with satellite imagery? This is pretty alarming. So the Trump administration is going to say they're doing this for Ukraine's benefit, to stop the war, stop the killing, and make peace. U.S. is weaponizing military aid and intelligence cutoff to force Ukraine into a ceasefire with the Russians. There's one problem with this plan, though. Russia says they don't want a ceasefire. A temporary Ukraine ceasefire is unacceptable. The Russians are not calling for peace. They're calling for a completion of the special military operation. They want the entire administrative borders of these 4 oblasts. And they're not going to stop fighting. They're not going to stop killing Ukrainians until they take everything they claim belongs to them now. Here are thoughts from Timothy Schneider. Russia's leaders have said nothing about peace. They have made a list of demands on the United States, the fulfillment of which allows them to broaden the war against Ukraine. And the United States simply fulfills all of these Russian demands without question. That is only a peace process in the Orwellian sense. And if you're hoping the professionals in the administration will save us, they won't. They're gone. Rubio calls Ukraine war a proxy conflict between the United States and Russia. This runs contradictory to everything that Marco Rubio has ever said or believed in the past. This is Donald Trump telling him what to say. And if he doesn't say it, he'll be fired. To call Ukraine our proxy, and that this is really a war between the United States and Russia, this completely disqualifies the sovereignty and independence and the free will of the Ukrainian people. To simply reduce the nation of Ukraine to being a proxy or a vassal of the United States, rather than a democratic ally, a democratic partner that we are supporting. it's in America's best interest that Russia doesn't succeed in this war. But this is Marco Rubio now repeating Kremlin propaganda. It's the Russians who for the last 3 years have been saying Ukraine is just a proxy of the United States and Joe Biden and the Democrats. And I really was hoping we could avoid this, but after the Oval Office confrontation, MAGA's gone, guys. MAGA, I don't believe, is ever going to support Ukraine going forward. This is the net favorability rating of President Zelensky. So to get Zelensky to sign that minerals deal, Donald Trump started attacking him, saying that Ukraine started this war and Zelensky is a dictator. There was then the blow-up, and now the net favorability rating of Zelensky is minus 40 amongst Republicans. This is MAGA. It's plus 63 amongst Democrats, which is nice, but the Democrats don't control anything. MAGA controls all three branches of our government right now. And it gets worse as far as the professionals. Retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg blames Zelensky for the Trump debacle. And Ukraine brought the halts to their military aid and intelligence sharing on themselves. So, Keith Kellogg, of course, this guy opposes Russia and supports Ukraine, but once again, he has to say and do what Donald Trump wants, otherwise he'll be fired. I think all of these people eventually will be fired anyways for different reasons, but they're just trying to hold on to their jobs this week. And Keith Kellogg has stopped tweeting. After the Oval Office disaster, this was over a week ago, he hasn't tweeted anything since then, but he made an appearance at the Council on Foreign Relations and gave a speech, and this was a really bad speech. This was insanely offensive. So according to Kellogg, Trump recognizes that the U.S. needs to reset relations with Russia in order to secure U.S. national security. The continued isolation and lack of engagement with the Russians as the war in Ukraine continues is no longer a viable strategy. So the slogan for as long as it takes, nope. Donald Trump says we need to get back to business as normal with Russia today. Lift all sanctions, normalize relations, pretend like nothing bad ever happened. And Keith Kellogg didn't have to do this, but he was pretty darn offensive. Kellogg said on the effect of U.S. military aid and intelligence cutoff to Ukraine, "It's like hitting a mule in the face with a 2x4. You know, you got their attention." So this is Keith Kellogg comparing the nation of Ukraine to a farm animal, a beast of burden who needs to be smacked around to force them to do what you want them to do. This was uncalled for. There was no reason to speak like this. And honestly, it's really sad, because retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, he's 80 years old. What does he care if he's fired? Why is he trying to hold on to this position if he can't do any good for Ukraine? If he can't put up any opposition to the Russians? When you're that old, when you're that advanced in age, you should really, as you're about to leave this world, stand for something. Stand for real principles. And this man at the moment stands for nothing. He's an embarrassment. I apologize. Based on these comments, Kellogg is clearly on Putin's side. Everything quoted below is 100% consistent with Putin's objectives. He did not say one word of criticism of the country that started this war, annexed territory, terrorized civilians, and kidnapped Ukrainian children. Just shocking, and for me as an American, embarrassing. Everyone in the Trump administration today is embarrassing. And it gets worse. Trump allies hold secret talks with Zelensky's political rivals. This is members of Maga and Trump's administration shopping around for a new president of Ukraine. They want to get rid of Zelensky. They don't like Zelensky. And to Ukraine's credit, Ukrainian opposition leaders dismiss the idea of wartime elections. Publicly, they're saying this would be irresponsible. There's no functional way for Ukraine to have an election while Russia continues the war. But Russia is demanding this because they want to get rid of Zelensky, and Trump is demanding this because Donald Trump wants to get rid of Zelensky. The new US administration is pushing for elections in Ukraine. According to multiple polls, General Zelensky is the main contender against Zelensky. Here's what General Zelensky said today. Washington is taking more and more steps towards the Kremlin regime at a time when Russia and the axis of evil are attempting to dismantle the global order. So even if Trump and Putin manage to get rid of Zelensky, it would probably be General Zelensky. Here is the polling for all of the most well-known potential presidential candidates. At this time, Zelensky is still getting 43% against everyone else. But General Zelensky is at 20 and Poroshenko is at 10. But every time Putin or Trump attacks Zelensky, it has a rally around the flag effect inside Ukraine. Zelensky's approval climbs to 68% following his dispute with Trump. So here's the polling data going back to December. So this was 3 months ago. Zelensky's approval rating was 52%. It then went up to 57%, and now the latest polling after Trump called him a dictator and said it's Ukraine's fault for starting this war, now his approval rating is 67%. So what Trump and J.D. Vance want is to get rid of Zelensky because he won't do what they want. And here's some expert analysis from David Frum. This guy nails it. He says it better than I can. So I'm going to play this clip. It's about a minute and a half. And David Frum is going to explain to you what exactly is MAGA. What do these people actually want?
I think there's something more that is going on. MAGA is the celebration of male grievance. It's this cult of manhood. But in fact, the people around Trump are cowardly, contemptible people, and they're soft. And they steal. They get rich in corrupt ways, and then they're confronted with the Zelensky we saw in February of 2022. With this extraordinary act of personal courage, the Russians coming to his capital, he's offered exit by an evacuation, and he refuses. And he says, "I'm going to basically, we will win this war, or I will die in the ruins of my capital city. Yes, you will see my face, not my back." And I think he just shames them. He just shames them. Every time J.D. Vance looks at Zelensky, he sees a better man, and he hates it because, at some level, if you're a J.D. Vance, you have to know what you are. And, maybe you have systems of justification, but you have to know you're a troll, you're a bully, you're just a lesser person. And here is the bravest leader in the world, and he makes you feel. So you have to create these fantastic stories about he's stealing billions to buy yachts. That describes the people in the Trump circle. But so they have this animus against him because they have to. Because otherwise, if he's not what they say he is, what are they?
For the last 10 years, I've not understood MAGA. But all of my interactions with MAGA people, it's been more or less the same thing. It's male grievance. It's mostly men who are upset. Angry at women, the red pill community, angry at Muslims, angry at immigrants, angry at the LGBTQ community. And in the comments section, guys, these people are just very unhappy. When I meet a typical Trump supporter, they're not a happy person. They're incredibly angry about whatever they're angry at. And yeah, they hate President Zelensky because he's not for sale. He's not corrupt. He's not willing to do what they want. Because he stands up for freedom and democracy and human rights and the international rule of law. Everything that Trump and Putin and Vance can't stand. They hate it. So they're trying to get rid of Zelensky, they're trying to smear him, they want to replace him, but I don't think the Ukrainian people would ever vote for somebody different. You know, whether it's Zelensky or even Poroshenko, I don't think they're going to get a better alternative. But at the moment, they're trying to destroy this man because they can't corrupt him. And cruelty is the point. Trump administration reportedly plans to end the legal status for 240,000 Ukrainian refugees. This is according to a source telling Reuters that this is what Trump is planning to do in the future. Now, the White House press secretary says this is fake news, but her answer is not reassuring. The truth, no decision has been made at this time. If it's fake news, you can say they're not at risk. They'll be allowed to stay. These are 240,000 Ukrainian refugees who have been here for years. Their kids are in school. This is mostly women and children. They've learned English. They're white. They're Christian. These are the ideal immigrants for MAGA. But cruelty is the point. If Zelensky doesn't do everything that Trump wants going forward, then yes, he's going to use this as a pressure point. He's going to deport hundreds of thousands of women and children back to a war-torn country, right when the United States cuts off military aid and intelligence sharing. So let's check in on the Russians. They can't believe their luck. They can't believe how everything is going so well for them. Solyov says Russia should take back the Baltics, Armenia, and Central Asia. If Russia can take Ukraine and the United States doesn't care, then yes, they're going to go for Moldova, the Caucasus, Central Asia, and the Baltics. So here's Solyov having a good week. There hasn't been a blow like this against the Western world in a long time. What have we found out from this speech? He's talking about Trump's State of the Union. First of all, it wasn't for China that the American people lost so many to build the Panama Canal. So 100 years ago, the United States paid to build the Panama Canal. And this was 100 years ago, so thousands of people died of malaria and tropical diseases building the canal. But those weren't U.S. citizens. They were natives to the Caribbean, cheap labor that the Americans brought in because it was so dangerous to dig trenches, you know, when malaria and other tropical diseases were so prevalent. Note that it doesn't matter that it is on the territory of some other country, Panama. I immediately project this on all of the great construction projects by the USSR. I'd like to note, we didn't build the ports in the Baltics for these NATO Nazis. We also have lots of questions for Central Asia and Armenia. Who built all of that? So because Trump is using the argument, America built the Panama Canal, therefore we can take it back whenever we want, this is Solyov saying, the Kremlin, under the Soviet Union, built all of these dams and infrastructure projects in the Caucasus, Central Asia, Ukraine, the Baltics. Therefore, Russia has a right to retake all of that territory. That's what he's saying. Based on Trump's logic, everyone should come home. I really liked how he addressed the people of Greenland. The people of Greenland, you can decide your own future. If you want to join America, ho ho. Right away, I thought that all is fine with Donbass now, and Crimea is also fine. Who knows? Maybe Donald Trump will first militarily invade Greenland and then have a fake election where everyone at gunpoint has to vote, do you want to join the United States? It'll be a rigged election, the way it was in Crimea and the Donbass region. And this is just how the superpowers act going forward. First, you invade the country, you then have a fake election to give yourself legitimacy, and then it belongs to you. This might be what Trump will attempt to do in Greenland, and the Russians support it. The people of Kharkiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv, Tallinn, there are many of our people there who also want this, and also Riga, also Vilnius, so they don't think they were forgotten. What inviolability of borders? Who says annexations are forbidden? It's over. Forget it. So the sovereignty of nations, international law, it's gone. Warfare will now be continuous, as the largest superpowers, China, Russia, and the United States, will continuously be at war with their smaller, weaker neighbors, knocking them off, absorbing them, either installing puppet governments or just redrawing the maps. This is what Maga and the Russians want to do. And this is the only way that Russia can win, is if the United States stops supporting Ukraine. 3 years of warfare, and I've barely done any map updates at all the last couple months, guys, because it's just not noteworthy whenever the Russians take a tree line or a wheat field. They're still losing 1,000 people a day in these stupid meat assaults, and they still can't even take the city of Pokrovsk. I do want to mention that Ukraine is currently on a counteroffensive in the city of Toretsk, as well as the surrounding area in Pokrovsk. They're having some limited success on the battlefield. They're trying to prove their strength and worth. You can see these blue areas where Ukraine has retaken some territory, but Russia can't win this war unless we just let them win. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to do right now. So where's Europe? What is Europe doing? EU leaders commit to working together after Trump signals that Europe must defend itself. Here's a statement from the Prime Minister of Poland. The war, the geopolitical uncertainty, and the new arms race started by Putin have left Europe with no choice. Europe must be ready for this race, and Russia will lose like the Soviet Union lost 40 years ago. From today, Europe will arm itself more wisely and faster than Russia. The economy of Europe, minus Russia, it's 10 times larger than Russia. This is no contest. It was no contest 3 years ago. And the Europeans love their press conferences. They love their meetings. But they just haven't taken strong enough action. And we might actually be there. Who knows? This is the president of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, and there was this emergency summit. This is the statement she gave after she had her meeting.
I think I'll be a little bit more blunt than usual today, and our message on this day of a Special European Council on Defence is that it is about damn time. This is something that we have been asking for a long time, that the European Union, that Europe is capable of standing up on its own 2 feet. That's why we've been saying we need to scale up, we need to be prepared, we need to produce, and we need to protect. That is essentially what our citizens are asking from us. That is essentially what it will take for Europe to say that we are ready to put, finally, our money where our mouth is, on Ukraine. The situation today is exactly the same as it was 3 years ago. Ukraine is fighting for Europe, and Europe needs to be hand in hand, lockstep, with whoever is fighting for our security, for our values. Ukraine's security is Europe's security. And today, more than ever, also with the president of the country, we will stand with him and will say, we are with you. But to do that, we need to do more. We need to make sure that even here we put our money where our mouth is, that we help financially, that we help militarily, and we're able to say that yes, what you are fighting is what we will be fighting for together. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Allocating more money is great, but Europe needs to start mandating to their companies to start producing more for defense production. The existing defense industry is not big enough or strong enough to meet the demands of the European continent. The governments of Europe have to tell companies like BMW, if you want to still make cars, you can still make cars, but you have to start making armored vehicles. We need civilian companies that don't make weapons right now to sit in some meetings and sign some agreements. They'll be paid, but they need to start producing for Europe and Ukraine now. Ideally yesterday. but now is better than nothing. Macron proposes French nuclear extension and Ukraine troop deployments. The president of France gave a fiery speech. It was about 13 minutes. And Macron has talked tough in the past, but will there be action? We can't trust Russia's words. I appreciate this. France has done a lot, especially with the arrival of these new Mirage jets. But we need more. We need more. What's Russia's response to France getting fired up? A return to the times of Napoleon. Russia calls French nuclear comments a threat. Kremlin says Macron is detached from reality, comparing him to Hitler and Napoleon after the French leader warned of extending his country's nuclear deterrent. So France has about 300 nuclear weapons, and if the United States isn't providing nuclear deterrence to NATO at all anymore, well, at least Macron was willing to say, if Russia uses a nuke against Ukraine, you might get a response from France. I appreciate it. Kremlin prepares Russians for new mass mobilization. So if Donald Trump lifts all sanctions against Russia, Russia's economy will start doing better. If Russia's economy does better, Putin then thinks he might be able to get away with a new round of mobilization, an additional 300,000 men that he can then send to the war zone. This potentially could happen later this year. Everything is uncertain. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine, and there was an interesting piece of American news I want to share with you. U.S. Supreme Court tells Trump he must pay out $2 billion in withheld foreign aid. So Elon Musk destroyed USAID. This was money allocated by Congress, and the executive branch is in charge of executing the laws of Congress, but Donald Trump said all foreign aid is a scam, even the foreign aid that was going to Ukraine. So this made it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Trump administration lost in a 5-4 vote, which is shocking because there's only 3 liberals on the court. So we need 2 conservatives, 2 Republican-appointed justices to vote with the liberals, and Chief Justice Roberts joined the 3 liberals, as well as Amy Coney Barrett, or Amy Barron-Coates. I forget what her name is. Amy Coney Barrett. Trump appointed her to the Supreme Court a couple years ago, and she just voted against him. So at the moment, MAGA is calling her a DEI hire because she's a woman. And there was this moment in the State of the Union address, you got to be careful because there's cameras everywhere. But when Donald Trump walked past the Supreme Court justices, this is Amy, and she doesn't look that happy or that impressed to see the President of the United States. Donald Trump is a misogynist and a rapist, but yeah, maybe he made a mistake appointing a woman to the Supreme Court if she ends up ruling against him in important cases coming up this year. We'll see. I do want to say it's insane the vote was 5-4. The 4 conservatives voting in favor of Trump. What is the legal argument? What is this based on? It's frightening that it's even 5-4 when Trump is just breaking all federal law. He's not executing the laws of Congress. Do I sound alarmed, guys? I'm pretty alarmed. Other good news, Norway to double aid for Kyiv to 7.5 billion euros. Thank you so much to the fantastic Norwegians. Netherlands offers 3.5 billion in new military aid package. Thank you so much to the fantastic Dutch. UK agrees to £30 million deal to supply advanced drones to Ukraine. Thank you so much to the Brits. Latvia donates cars confiscated from drunk drivers to aid Ukraine's humanitarian and defense needs. Not good for the drunk drivers, they lost their vehicles, but it's a good use for the vehicles, 31 in total. Thank you to the people of Latvia, especially you alcoholics. Final clip I want to share for you is once again from friend of the channel, Caolan Robertson. This is his report from yesterday in the capital city of Kyiv.
Donald Trump just said he wants to deport 240,000 legal Ukrainian refugees from the United States. And there's air raids going off all around me here in the capital of Ukraine, and it really begs the question, to where? Where are Ukrainian refugees supposed to go while the United States is siding with Russia? Most Ukrainian refugees I have met in the West are people who want to go home, who would happily go home. They don't need to be deported. They speak of their home in Mariupol, Donetsk, Luhansk with love and passion, places they grew up and places they would go home in seconds. But instead of giving them a home to go to and allowing them to go home, Donald Trump has decided to side with the person and the country that took their home from them. And that is why this is so cruel and so evil. This city is being bombarded, as you can hear, on a daily basis by Russia. And that is why there are 240,000 Ukrainian refugees in the US. People that would go home in a second. But Donald Trump has decided instead that he wants to side with their enemy, to side with the person that's firing drones and missiles all around me right now. And that's why this is particularly evil and particularly sick.
If you made it this far, I know the news is dark right now, but I promise you all of these idiots are going to lose. We are going to defeat these people. I'm confident of it. I don't have the plan yet. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, guys, but I'm never going to quit. I'm never going to stop. I know fantastic people like Caolan and everyone else who I quote in today's video. We're not going to stop until Ukraine is safe and secure, and both Russia and Donald Trump are defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.